Okay, we are live.
Thank you very much.
We're ready to start the pledge.
Okay, welcome everyone to our November 18th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. Let's please start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, before we start, welcome, Jack. Good to have you on board.
It's a pleasure.
Our first item is minutes from September 9th, 2020 for approval.
Let me do the roll call, John.
Oh, I'm sorry, forgot that, Surratt. Please do the roll call.
Okay, Chairman Curry,
Here.
Ms. Gannon,
Here.
Ms. Gurbino,
Here.
Mr. McNamara,
Here.
Mr. Prince,
Here.
Mr. Zaberto,
Here.
and Mr. Mattis, who we
Here.
now have to add to our list on our letterhead.
Thank you, Surratt. The minutes for consideration from September 9th, 2020. Any changes, additions, corrections?
No, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as they were written.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a time extension for the Paramount at Somers. This is a request for a one-year time extension for site plan approval of the Paramount at Somers as per resolution 2019-14, which is from November 13th, 2020 up to and including November 13th, 2021, as per the town code section 170-117H and 170-114K. For the record, the property is located on the west side of Route 100 and it's located in the R80 zoning district. Surratt, why don't you just bring the board up to speed on why this is all about?
Yeah, actually, they were reminded about this happening, and they moved things along very quickly. And actually, they met all of their requirements and got their site plan in, and John actually signed it. But the reason that it needs to be on the agenda for the extension is because it actually expired prior to this meeting. And therefore, we need to fill that gap. So you need to actually vote to approve this, but it's really sort of just, perfunctory in that we're doing it because it is moving along and they're going to, I assume, go get their building permit shortly. This is for the canopy and the
Right.
front.
Yeah, I'll make a motion then for the time extension as I presented it before.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is the public hearing for Bluestone Academy, and at the request of the applicant, the public hearing has been adjourned to 12/9/20.
Is there anything
So
we
next-
should know?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything we should know about the extension?
Not that I'm aware of. Surratt
Well,
or Joe?
we have to extend it because they have not adopted the new zone yet. So
No,
it's,
that's correct. We're actually,
Essentially,
we're waiting for the town board.
Okay.
So next on our agenda is New York American Water Company. It's the application for the site plan approval for the granular activated carbon treatment system building at Diker Water Treatment Facility at the Willows. We're in receipt of a memo from Woodard and Curran. So Joe, do you want to talk about, or why don't we have the applicant's representative just bring us up to speed, and then we'll hear from our consulting engineer, please. You can let in whoever's here for this application, please.
Then Nicole?
Okay, great.
Hello, Kristen. Who's here on behalf of American Water Company? Anyone?
Hello, this is Kristen Barrett. Can you hear me
Oh.
okay?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm with Hazen and Sawyer, and I'm here, and it looks like John Kilpatrick is signing in, or maybe he's on from New York American Water. Oh, he just got,
Yeah, this is
oh,
John.
there he is. Okay,
How are you doing today?
good.
Good. Thanks. You want to just bring us up to speed where you're at, and then we'll let Joe go over his memo?
Sure. So since we were here together a month ago, a few things have happened. We have had a site meeting with the resident of the Willows, Mr. Cashman, I think, if I have that correct. One of our Hazen and Sawyer representatives, and Chris Peters from New York American Water, as well as a representative of the HOA. So was discussed what their concerns were of the project, was brought up regarding some of the landscaping issues or requests, I should say. So as a result, we have included a landscaping plan that was reviewed with them at the time of the meeting on site, which I believe was October 29th. And that has been included in the submittal that you received maybe 2 weeks ago or so. So that is in there. There are a combination of a few trees and a few various shrubs along the guide rail. The guide rail has been changed to a Merit style timber guide rail, as well as some screening around the generator that's there. So that has been probably the biggest, I say, change that that since we last spoke, and then we have not received any other comments from the residents or the HOA. And
Okay. All right, then if you don't have any other comments, then we're still in a public hearing. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to be heard at this time, please contact us. Do you have anybody, Vicky?
No, I don't see any new texts. There are some voicemails, but they're old voicemails.
Okay.
So they're not relevant because the hearing hadn't been open. They're from like last weekend in October. So nothing here.
And
Joe and
Saret,
do you have any
no,
comments?
oh, sorry, I was going to
Yeah,
ask
go
if there were
ahead. Okay.
any emails from the residents. Sometimes they bring in comments that way.
No, I have not seen anything.
What about the one about one of the residents, didn't he send a email in about where one of the wells are being done?
Well,
That
Or
was
is that-
both for the last meeting, not for this meeting.
Okay, sorry.
Joe, you want to just briefly run through your menu?
Yeah, so I'll just be brief. You know, we have really three things that are you know, just items to check off. Number one is relative to the SWIP, where all of the submitted documents and language we're comfortable with. In the end, I mean, we just need the submittal of the revised SWIP that incorporates those changes, but those changes that have been identified are acceptable. The other open item is once the health department, Westchester County Health Department approval is obtained, that'll need to be provided. And those were, you know, really all that we had left from the previous comments. The only thing I'm going to ask you, Kristen, to add is, you know, you mentioned that the new submittal included the landscaping plan. One of the things that I'd like you to include is a note on that drawing that you know, right now you reference a certain amount of watering over a certain initial time period to establish. I'd like a note on the plan that just says watering will be ongoing to keep, you know, to basically make sure the plants survive. We've had some other instances in town where we did a really good job in initial watering, and then we get into a drought and plants die, and that becomes a challenge. So I just want a note on the drawings that just suggest that the landscaping will be continually watered until, you know, so that, you know, until they're well established and as needed to survive.
Or replaced.
Or replaced.
Yeah, wouldn't it be better just to say that they should be replaced?
Yeah, it should be both. It should be, you know, continue to water to keep them alive, you know, to make sure they survive. And if they don't do that, they would need to be replaced.
Sure,
Yeah.
and what we hopefully did a good job selecting are plants that once established do well in this climate. So that was definitely a goal of the selection. I know that we can experience droughts.
Yeah, and we concur with that. I ran it past our landscape architect and they were very comfortable with the plant selection as well. But just having the experience that we've had good plants in the past, and then when the rain doesn't fall out of the sky, when they're young, sometimes they still don't make it, right? And it's really that first, you know, 2 growing seasons are really important. And at that point, they're usually pretty well established.
Joe, are they native or relatively native plants? Do we ask that?
Kristen, do you want to walk through?
Yes, it was requested by the Open Space Committee.
Right. That's why I'm bringing it up.
You want to walk through the plant types? I believe they are.
Sure, I have them here. Where's the share screen? Share screen.
I know when I asked Melissa to look at it, I asked her to check that as well.
So this is the palette. There are a few of these, and I'm not the landscape architect, but I can at least speak a little bit to this. There are 2 a few paper bark maples, and this eastern redbud. This is shown in different seasons, spring and summer, and a few of this bloomis shrubs, mountain laurel, and this is also the paper bark maple in a different season. And I can pull up the plan. Are there any questions about those plans?
Yes, I don't see anything. These are all deciduous plants. What's going to happen during the winter? If you're planning to put screening up, that screening is going to be non-existent during the winters. Why
The
are
mountain laurel is not deciduous.
Yeah, but that's the only one. What about something like the green giant arborvitae or pine? That was just a question.
Sure, and I think the mountain laurel, I believe, are the ones that are around the generator. So what plan is that? And I probably would feel that would be the mountain laurel, yeah. So this is the generator here. The road is right over here. This is the generator, which does have a chain link fence. So I think with those being year round, that is screening from the view of the generator. I think the others provide a more seasonal a look to the area. The mountain laurel is here along the timber guide rail.
Okay.
So they've been basically strategically placed, I think, is what you're looking at there, Bruce, is.
Yeah, but there's a problem there. If you know anything about mountain laurel, after they start to grow, they basically, the first 2 or 3 feet start to become just branches or trunks and no leaves. Mountain laurels are known for that. That's the only. So I mean, after 3 or 4 years, there may be some upper greenery that stays all year, but the bottom is going to be basically just trunks and stems and branches. But I'm not a horticulturist, so if this is approved, it's fine.
The deer eating them?
No.
No, deer don't eat them.
No, they don't. They're poisonous.
And this is John Kilpatrick from New York American. So two things I'll say is, number one, if any of these plants don't make it through the winter, we're here. We're neighbors in this area. We're not going anywhere. We'll get them fixed. And then, number two, the year-round plants are covering the generator, which I think is the most industrial looking thing on the site. The building's going to look nice. The rest of the site, you wouldn't really know that it's a utility plant. It's going to be a nice looking building that just puts additional landscape and additional interest to look at on the site there. It's not really hiding anything on a permanent basis.
And I believe you said that the homeowners association were satisfied. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm relying a lot on as well, that the people who live in this community were satisfied, and we do have the screening for the generator, which I think is the most, as was said, is the most industrial looking piece.
Right.
Fine. If they approved it, it's fine.
And those are really the only comments that we had, is just the follow-up comments on the other two. In other words, everything Kristen submitted, we're good with. It just now needs to be incorporated into the SWIP, and just so we can verify they're in the final SWIP. And then just that one note on the plantings. And then, of course, we have to follow through with the Westchester County Health Department approval when you have it.
Yep.
But other than that, we're ready to go, John.
Thank you. Surratt, do you have any comments?
Only that we have to do secret on this, but no
Right.
comments on the project.
Okay. If there's no more board questions, you want to go through secret now?
Sure. The board already declared itself lead agency.
Right.
So I had forwarded the part 2 and the neg deck. The only issue at all from a environmental point of view is that it is in an area with the potential northern bats. So any
Right.
site disturbance has to happen between now and the period of March 31st. But otherwise, the board can make a determination of no significance and issue a negative declaration. So we
Members?
should-
I'm willing to propose that motion to declare a negative declaration based on the information that's been supplied to us this far.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Then I guess what we should do is, if everybody's agreed to it, instruct our director of planning to prepare a resolution, either for my signature or to come back for the December meeting.
The public hearing's still open, correct?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
we have-
sorry. Yes, it is.
That's what I was gonna say.
Is it- Yeah.
Um,
Is there anything else come in, Becky?
No, nothing at all. Let me just
All
check
right.
thing again.
Then-
No
Then let me
messages.
make a motion then to close the public hearing.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Are there 2 public hearings on this project?
Not on this phase.
Yeah, we're only
Building.
speaking towards the building right now, Nancy. The
Right.
the
the
wells
building.
have been postponed.
Right.
The wells are not going to be in front of us tonight.
They're 2 different agenda items.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
right.
separate. The second one is still open.
Right, okay.
This is just for the building.
So we had a proposal to close the public hearing on the building.
Yes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What's the board's wishes? Do you want it for my signature? Or do you want to see the resolution next meeting?
I'm willing to waive that.
Yeah,
Oh,
Joe, let
baby.
me just ask you, all the 3 items that you mentioned, you
Right.
satisfied that they can be conditional?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And for
Okay,
chairman's
I'll make
signature.
I'll make a motion that our director of planning prepares a resolution for chairman's signature with those motions in it, with those conditions in it.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Looking forward.
Our next item from the North American Water Company, also for the water property at Crystal Drive, is they've asked to be adjourned to November 9th also. So moving right along.
So, John, I'll just give the board a quick update. I spoke
Sure.
to the consultant earlier today. We walked through some of his approach towards the hydrogeology study required for the the groundwater overlay district. So we're on the same page on what we're going to get there. And I walked through with him also what I think is what we heard from the public is the broader concern. And I know the board's concern has been relative to the source of the PFAS and PFOA contamination. And he's indicated that they've completed their phase 1 and done their site walk to verify that there's no ongoing source. And we should see that documentation. He says he has 4 reports coming into us for the next meeting. So it seems like we should have a pretty robust amount of material to review on this next meeting.
Okay. And for the record, for the public hearing will continue in the December 9th meeting, obviously.
This one, yes.
Yes, on this one, yes.
Right. And do I understand correctly, these wells are 800 to 900 feet deep?
That's the projection, I understand.
Yeah.
That's my understanding too.
Meaning they don't actually exist yet.
Well, they're going deep into the aquifer.
There's
Yes.
one of them that's in, and then the other 3 that are in the wetland that are subject to the application are have not gone in yet, Nancy.
I see. That's confused me.
That's deeper than most in this town.
That's a very deep well.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are 200 to 400 feet.
Right.
All right, well then, next on our agenda is the proposal for it's from Insight Wireless Group LLC, a special permit renewal for the property known as 121 Route 100, the Amato property. David, are you going to give a little summation of where we're at, please?
Sure, absolutely. Again, for the record, my name is David Kenny. I'm an attorney with Snyder & Snyder, representing the applicant Insight Wireless. I believe since our last meeting, there was a request to make sure that our inspection was done on an in-person review, and then also that we had the correct certifications for our engineer. We made a filing recently, and I believe the memo that we received from Joe limited the comments just to making sure that the engineering firm that submitted the structural certification has the correct certifications in New York. We're working with them and their corporate offices to obtain that certification, and we can file that with the planning board as a condition of approval should the planning board choose to approve this special permit renewal tonight.
So David, one of the things I'll just share with you is I know that there was a business license that we saw a copy of, but we actually contacted the Office of the Professions, right? And they are not registered with the Office of Professions to practice engineering in the state of New York. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to resolve.
Yeah, we've informed them of that and they're working on it. Again, the engineer himself was licensed in New York, but we informed them that there's a second certificate for the firm that they're required to have.
Right.
However, they previously did have it. I believe it needs to be renewed every 3 years, and they just didn't happen to renew it.
Right. So I think that ultimately, once we get that certification, I concur that the other documentation that we requested with the site, with the in-person site visit has been addressed. It's really just down to, let's make sure that they have their appropriate authorizations in place, and then we're okay with proceeding on this as well, John.
Okay. Surratt, do you have any comments?
Yes, David knows because we've been in touch with him several times. 2 things. One is the escrow has not been forthcoming. I think in the transition from the ZBA to the planning board, a lot of these applicants are going to have to get used to the fact that there's going to have to be initially a larger escrow for us to process these things, because they really happened almost immediately at the zoning board. And, our requirements are
Real.
by the book. So David and I have spoken about that, so another condition will be the escrow. But the one thing I do want the board to address is the report identified many what they called housekeeping items on the site in terms of the cleanliness of the site, broken fences, things that really, you know, if you were going into somebody else's backyard, you'd say, hey, this place needs a cleanup. So I wanted the board to consider whether or not they want some or all of those housekeeping items to be part of their renewal approval as part of the.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. I think the applicant would agree with that. Those housekeeping items are going to be done, but I don't see any reason why they can't be a condition of approval. And as far as the escrow, we only were informed of the amount last week, but I just received a confirmation today that I'll have a check in hand for that escrow amount on Friday. So I'll get that to the town.
thank you very much.
Would it be out of place to ask to delineate what those housekeeping items are, or is that too much to ask?
No, I have a copy of the report. I can go through it tonight.
You
Okay.
want to identify them, David? Go ahead. They're right listed in the report, but you want to just go
Page
through-
5, page 5 of the report.
Yeah, I actually have the report, so I was just going to screen share them so we can all review them.
Great.
So
Oh, you went past it.
I don't think they're actually listed on page 5, though. This is page 5 of the report.
Oh, housekeeping.
This is
Right
stating what housekeeping is.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I think it's later on in the report. See, the rec.
There
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
potential for improvement, yes.
Yeah, so these are the category of housekeeping items.
Yeah.
So we'll install the new faux pine needles, make sure that the tree has the correct stealth design. I think there's some for removing of feed lines as required. So there was some cut feed lines from previous installations. We have to just remove the old ones. Again, install new faux pine branches and reinstall the faux pine branches. We have it for each, I guess, different height where they've noted it. Repair the fence and the compound gate as required. Some areas of the fence are damaged, so we'll repair the fence. There's some minor vegetation debris around the compound area. That usually means some weeds when they say minor vegetation. So we'll remove those. So there's some minor erosion of the tower compound. That's really just inside the fenced area. So we just have to backfill some areas or put some extra gravel down to make sure that we have a flat grade. The grounding access tube is missing a PVC cap. So we just have to put a cap on this grounding tube. The AT&T surge arrestor is not properly secured. So we'll just make sure that it's properly secured.
I have a question on that. The surge arrestor, is that technically a ground?
I honestly don't have more technical information than that. I'm sorry. I can ask and get more information for the board,
Yes,
but
I'd like
I
to
will
know.
assure that we'll absolutely address this and we'll make sure that, you know, all of these housekeeping items are properly addressed. The properly secured could be as simple as that, you know, there might be not a locked door on the cabinet. Sometimes when they say not properly secured, that usually means a lot of these
A lock.
equipment cabinets are locked and there might not be a lock on it.
So Joe, how does it work for these housekeeping items to be taken care of? I mean, that's right before they get their final approval. Is that how that works?
Yeah, I think we're going to list them as a contingency items that say,
Okay.
you know, that they need to address these prior to, usually we put a prior to, right? So in this instance, I think it'd be prior to issuance of the renewal.
Okay.
So
And then
maybe just to offer advice, a final signed resolution maybe could be withheld until that point.
Does the building department do the inspection?
Yeah, who's going to follow up to ensure that this housekeeping work has been completed before we give the
At the
final
building
approvals?
department?
It would normally be the building department, but you know, I mean, I can go look at it too. It's just to not get Tommy involved and I could talk to Tommy and coordinate on, we'll verify before we sign off that they're done.
We'll also file the report. Many of these reports that we file include photos of the area. So we'll also have photos of the repairs, but absolutely you can have your own engineer also confirm that we made the correct repairs.
Yeah, David, how will you coordinate with your client, or once you've secured the renewal, is your job done? How will you know to inform the town that they are going about doing these things? Because these don't require building permits of any sort. They're just going to go out there and do it or not do it.
So that's why I offered one way for this board to help protect against the conditions is to not issue the signed resolution of renewal until you have all of these conditions completed.
Agreed.
Good idea.
Agreed.
That's fair.
Yep.
Joe, can we circle back to your memo? Item number 3. Would you like to address that, please?
All right, let's see here.
It is our recommendation that the planning board consider whether the applicant shall complete a coverage analysis to demonstrate sufficient wireless coverage is provided.
Yes.
And you hadn't addressed it. So.
Yes. So if you recall, I think we discussed this in one of the earlier meetings, and we probably should have identified that on our memorandum. But we're talking about the tower today, not the equipment. Right? I think the coverage issue becomes the equipment issue, not the tower issue.
Right.
Correct. When I represented T-Mobile and a similar comment came up, we were able to get those maps because T-Mobile, that applicant, has access to those coverage maps. This Insight Wireless group, they just own the infrastructure, so they're not actually the antenna operator.
So it's not the applicant's responsibility to provide that information.
Correct. Right now, this is just getting the tower, but this comes to that broader issue that we should have a broader conversation on with our council to understand how can we wrap these together so that
Amen.
we're doing this at one time and we can handle the tower. It's complicated, as we talked about last time, because you never know when a new antenna renewal is going to come in, but we absolutely, I think, should be talking about a code revision around this. And I know Mr. Godioso provided some thoughts on that as well.
So it's a coordinated review.
Correct. So that we're looking at everything together and not one off, because what happens, as we all know, and I see Vicky kind of roll her eyes on that, is everybody's pointing their finger at everybody else all the time when we get them in piecemeal. I think it's better when they all come in together. And our code doesn't require that, and I think there's a revision required.
It's eminently doable, so we'll get to it. There should be a code revision.
I think that would be an organized approach to these.
Yeah.
I think it would be in order for us to formalize that request from the town board.
I agree, to authorize the work.
Otherwise, it's just going to disappear.
Yeah, essentially, there is this task force, and I think we have 2 members that are on the task force, don't we?
And myself.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, let them bring it back to the task force. And I think the task force is the best avenue for, looking at what these issues are and coming up with some solutions.
Yeah,
I provided this input to Mr. Sirico, Councilman Sirico, I know is part of that as well.
He is. That's what I was gonna just add to the conversation, that we do have 2 town councilmen on it who are very much taking ownership of this endeavor. And I will definitely reiterate some of the comments here today to them about the consolidation of that process.
Makes it more manageable.
I agree. I mean,
I think it'll make it easier on the applicants too, frankly.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
right.
That's why I just want to bring this out to make clear. The issue is raised just to acknowledge it. We're not overlooking it, but it is indeed not their responsibility tonight.
Thank you for
Correct.
One thing I would like to mention, I think, David, the best thing to do is when we come up with the final version of this resolution, prior to signing, I will send it over to you so you can make it available to your client so they can see what all the conditions are. and let them know that, we're not going to sign it until they meet those conditions.
Absolutely. I think that's a great approach, but just to be known, we have already told them to complete the housekeeping items, and I believe they're already getting the contractors in line to make sure they get the work done. So, but I
Okay.
think will help that.
Okay.
Surratt and Joe and board, do you feel comfortable instructing to have a resolution prepared?
I'm not yet.
Okay.
I just want to circle back to the engineering issue and the licensing in the state. Is there any chance that the fact that at the time that the inspection was done, that people were not licensed to perform that inspection in New York, would that invalidate it? Because what I'm hearing is the council saying that they're going to retroactively renew their license. But my understanding is that the time that the inspection was completed, they weren't supposed to do it in New York. So does that in any way invalidate the results or have some sort of
Chris has
issue
made
with
a
that?
very valid point, because we require any engineering be done by a registered.
Right, and see, that's the instance here is, Nancy, the engineer who did the inspection is licensed to practice in the state of New York. So the inspection was done by somebody with a valid license.
Yeah, but isn't he,
The engineering company,
Is
by the
not.
strict interpretation of the code, is really not permitted to offer or provide engineering services in the state.
The state of New York.
And really what it comes down to is the company, the engineering firm, owes some money to New York State for doing this business in New York. That's really what it comes down to. The engineer, as was stated, is licensed to practice in the state, and all of the conditions in his report, or all of the design requirements of the report, follow the license requirements. So the report is correct. The report is done by a licensed engineer, but the engineering firm let a certification lapse that they don't have, and they're working on getting it renewed, but they did have it before. It's really just they didn't make their payments that they should have made.
Well, I mean, how is that any different than a New York State licensed driver who gets a ticket and doesn't pay it, and now his license is suspended to operate a motor vehicle in New York State? At the time he operates the vehicle, he's not supposed to be operating it. I mean, I don't see that. I see that as the same thing here. It's a licensing from the state. It's required to have at the time that you dispatch the service. Well, if it's not, then please.
It's not a license, though. It's a certificate of authorization, which is legally a different document. They have a certificate from New York State Department of State to be an authorized business in the state. But there is also a separate certificate under New York State education law that they have to have from the Office of Professions as an engineering firm, a surveying firm, or an architect firm. The actual licensed engineer, though, the driver in your metaphor, was licensed. He properly did everything. But the engineering firm has to pay certain money to have their certificate retroactively activated. They can do this. There's even a process in the law for if you let the renewal lapse, you have to pay some money, and then it reactivates it retroactively. It's really not the same issue as a license not being there. It really is a matter of there's money owed to New York State, and that's really all it comes down to.
Right to do business.
Correct. They're based out of Georgia, and so they have to pay certain dues to do business, engineering business in New York, as a firm, as a company, more than one person.
All right.
I mean, Chris, what we can do on this, because my understanding is that the certification would hold, but I'm not an attorney and on this, and not that I don't believe.
I'm sure.
I can verify with the Office of the Professions that they concur, and because then if they would say, well, no, then we might just need a new date on that report, David, right?
Yeah, understood. That would be really the only thing. But I think my understanding of the law is that the engineer who did it, if his license was out, then it would be a different issue. What this is really going on is some fees owed to the state that need to be paid.
Right, but David, it is. I understand that may be the mechanical element, is that they're missing some fees, but I do know that, you know, the state education department is the one that issues licenses, right? It issues my engineering license. It also issues authorities to practice engineering, you know, and the ramifications aren't, if you violate that you go to jail, right? The ramifications are usually you lose your license,
Fine.
right?
You know,
And get fined.
in this particular one, there's a section of the New York State education law that actually, if you read it, it says what happens if your certificate of authority for the firm goes out, elapses is the term. And if that happens, there's a certain amount of money you pay for each month or each time period that you've gone and practiced without having that certificate of authorization. It's in the actual law. So, I mean, I understand the point, but really it's not the same document as having a license be lapsed or having a license be suspended. And again, you know, they should have had it. I mean, absolutely, they should have had it. That's something they should have done. And absolutely, we agree to having a condition of approval be done, that they get those correct certificate of authority, and we provide that to the town.
To answer the question, I think this would be my, you know, your counsel's advice on this. The initial question was, would it invalidate that? Under these circumstances, I don't think it invalidates that that inspection, because the distinction that the engineer has the license speaks to the qualifications to give us what we are demanding. What it is a compliance issue for them. They've got a problem. And look, had we known about it ahead of time, we certainly would have asked them to remedy it ahead of time to avoid this conversation. But I don't think, in retrospect, that it invalidates the inspection. It's an excellent question, and it's more than just a minor, you know, irregularity, so to speak. But if the question is, does it invalidate that inspection? My legal advice to you is that it does not at this point.
Now,
All right, counsel, thank you.
Chris, if you were
Housekeeping more than a legal issue.
right.
Yeah.
But isn't the application that we're talking about is signed by the corporation and not the individual engineer?
Well, it's signed by the engineer, but it's on the letterhead of the company, right? Which is why there is a loophole there. So, but not a loophole, a technicality there. So I might suggest this. I know that in the last application, we talked about there was going to be a draft of a resolution for chairman's signature. Why don't we have this one come back? Still get the resolution drafted, but let's have it come back to the board, and I'll give the state education department a call just to make sure that we're on firm ground here.
And is there anything wrong with our requiring that actual engineer who did it, that he use his New York State seal? That's all I require.
Yeah, no, his seal is on there, Nancy.
It is? Well, then it's no problem.
Yeah,
the only problem is the company is not really allowed.
I understand. But I'm satisfied it meets our requirement that the engineer has who did it, has the New York State valid license.
I think it was said well by Joe. The issue is,
that's all we asked for.
The issue that comes up is really for the company has an issue now that they have to resolve. I would agree that the certification is firm for our purposes, but I'm happy to follow up with them, Chris, to confirm that if the board wanted to.
Joe.
I mean, I just think it's prudent just to make sure that we cover that base. I mean, I understand entirely. I'm a license holder in New York State too, so I do understand that as an individual, the engineer was certified at the time, and his opinions and evaluations based on his training and knowledge is probably valid. I was just concerned about now the company who dispatches that person, if they weren't supposed to do that could end up being an issue down the road.
I think one of the key distinctions here is also because I can imagine a situation where we would have something that was essentially a compliance issue for the company, where I did not fall on the same side of this equation, like where I might say, no, I actually think it is a problem. One of the reasons I think here, this particular type of failure, right, is the very fact that when they pay it, and this is why they should get busy paying it so we can put this to bed when we see the resolution next time. It's actually retroactively effective. Aren't I right about that, Mr. Gaudioso? It goes.
Mr. Kenny, but yeah, yes.
Mr. Kenny, my God. I'm looking at a document here with Mr. Gaudioso's name on it. I apologize. But I'm right about that, right? It actually retroactively goes back. It will cover. The fact is they were out of compliance, but they can solve that problem, right? Isn't that?
I believe so, but I believe the important point was what you were making before, which is there's a distinction between the license and the certification. They absolutely should have had the certification in place, but I'm not absolutely sure it's the jurisdiction of this board to enforce the certification. I don't mind it being a condition of approval because they have to get it done, and I think it is the prudent thing to do. But really, their issue is they have to get to the Office of Professions and have their certificate be renewed.
Joe,
do what they have to do.
Joe, didn't I hear you suggest that they change the date on the inspection? Or
Well, it would be to change the date on the final report would be the ultimate remedy if it wasn't retroactive, right? But as Mr. Ariel says, but I can check on all this before the next meeting. Why don't we get the resolution drafted? I'll check on this. It comes back to this board, and I'll provide the board a summary of that conversation. And if in the process of that conversation I learn that they really should forward date the report, I'll pass that on to Mr. Kenny, and I'm sure that we'll get that final documentation, and the resolution will reflect that requirement.
Absolutely. If that's what needs to be done, we'll get it done. I don't think that's a problem.
I'm comfortable with that, Joe. Thank you. And both
And in
Joes.
the meantime, the town board can address the coordination issue.
Yep.
All right, and then by then you may know that all the housekeeping has been accomplished.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by December 9th, if it's done, we'll get that sign off. Mr. Kenny will let me know, and I'll go out and take a look, and we'll get that sign off done.
That's what I was just about to ask. When is the next meeting? December 9th?
December 9th, yes.
So just to make sure I'm clear about it, the personal inspection that has to be done will supersede NB&C's inspection report. Is that correct? Because if you look at it, NB&C doesn't supply evidence of licensure in New York either. If that's what you're looking for, Joe, is?
No, Blenheim Plus is the one that is ultimately, Bennett Plus is the one that is ultimately signing off on the document. They're relying on information by others, which they're allowed to do. And then they're saying we've done a personal site visit, and now they're signing off on it as a collective, right?
Okay, so that's even more reason why the state licensure is necessary, because they are then presenting under their auspices, under license, this inspection by another secondary party. Who's
I don't think he's secondary. He's an agent of that company, right?
Right.
He's an employee, right? So
a contractor whose licensure we don't see here in B&C.
Right.
Okay, so I think what Joe said earlier is that the engineer in many professions, they're allowed to take the information that are supplied by non-engineers. And so the NB&C did a personal inspection site visit, and they had all of the reports. And then this engineer did a personal inspection site visit and reviewed all of the information and certified it with his New York State licensed engineer seal. So that's common practice in engineering.
All right. So the key point there, Vicky, the certifying engineer didn't just take somebody else's site inspection. They relied on that, but then went out themselves as well and did their own. So the person whose seal is on this document also did a site inspection using the information that was done by the other company as supporting documentation while he did that. And then via his certification adopts, he's the one that's taking responsibility. In the end, we need somebody who's taking responsibility, and the individual who stamps the drawing takes responsibility, and that also therefore transfers to his company. And it's not a license for the company, it's a certificate of authorization to operate as an engineer.
So it's not that he personally was there, because the language was personally coordinated and overseen. I'm just
Correct.
where I understand, okay.
That he was overseeing that work, which he's allowed to do as an engineer. He's allowed to oversee the work of non-engineers and certify it.
Okay,
It's like you could have an apprentice do the work for you who's in training, right? And then you're ultimately certifying it on your license that that work was done completely.
Correct.
Okay.
so for the purpose of that, so personal inspection is not by the person who holds the license, the personal inspection was still by the agent, but the person who holds the license coordinated it,
Coordinated, and the key word in there is oversaw it,
oversaw it, okay, all right.
right? That's the fiduciary responsibility of the license holder is to oversee, not just blindly accept.
Okay,
He basically, he's saying he's taking responsibility for all of that work, and he put his license out there on it.
Well, the he or she with the stamp is the one that's still responsible. That's the key.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He put his
Yeah.
his license out there and,
Right.
and took a responsibility for this work.
All right, so to summarize it, I guess we'll see you back on the 9th, hopefully with everything taken care of by then.
Absolutely.
Fair enough?
Thank you.
Any other board member questions or comments?
I
Thank you.
have, John,
Yeah,
I have one question that's sort of a corollary to this. It doesn't have to deal with this particular case, but we're talking about changing the code so that we get the users and the owners at the same time. Now, do we have any input with regard to somebody is going to have a short renewal period? Do we basically say
On
that,
board would set those guidelines.
yeah,
I
but
think that's just a practical reality. If you change the code and you have someone's going to have a shorter review period. But in the end, I think it will all be better served by knowing that we're all coming in at the same time and having a more organized process.
so let's say on this particular project, if let's say in 2 years, the operators come in for a renewal, we're going to bring back this owner to get it all together. Is that what you were saying?
That may very well be the case, and we'll comply with that. I think the issue would be once the town sets the new code, then we'll have more instructions on how to follow that process. But yeah, the case may be we may come back in 2 years because that's the time period set from the last carrier's renewal.
Okay,
We'll
that's
have
what I,
more recent information for you then, but we may use the basis of some of the materials we have now.
I just
that's
wanna-
only
I
going to
wanna-
happen once.
Yeah, I want to make one point. Even though we coordinate renewals, there will still be ongoing applications for upgrades on a regular basis. So the only thing that will get coordinated are the renewal application.
Right.
But there will still be, I'm sure, regular Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile applications that are separate from that as they modify whatever they have on these poles. So don't think you're only going to see, one set of things every 5 years. That's not going to happen.
Conversion to 5G.
Well,
Right,
not
exactly.
only the 5G,
Whatever
but
it is.
I think you'll still have sites where, you have, I think some will be coming to you where you have T-Mobile and Sprint's merger. There's a lot of modifications being done to turn Sprint equipment into T-Mobile's equipment. And then you have just regular upgrades that, happen with these sites. So you will see these sites come to you a lot more than just the renewals. But I think it is still a good goal to organize the renewals if the goal is to have the carriers and the tower be together on those renewals.
right.
I mean,
Good.
even if you consolidate only 30% of our applications from cellular and telecommunications companies, that's a 30% consolidation that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Correct. Right.
And I think it makes easier record keeping, all of it. It's just everyone's coming in front of the board. We're knocking this out, and then it gives us more room for other projects, for other approvals. When they come up. So
Right.
I'm all for it.
It's a win-win.
Charts are easy to interpret.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll see you in December. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Next is our calendar for 2021. Everybody get a chance to review it?
No problem.
No problem? Okay. Do we have to, do we have to approve that, Saret? With a motion? No.
Frankly, I don't know, but to make sure. why
Well,
don't-
Joe's still on. Joe, do we have to
We
approve
normally
that?
do.
I would actually. You
I think we
usually do.
adopt it. Yes, we
Okay.
adopt.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt the planning board calendar for 2021 as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I just have one more thing to bring up. Somebody from the Affordable Housing Board, or I guess their board, asked me if there's some way that they could be more in the loop of things that come before the town, just for them. And they want to know if anybody was interested in being a liaison with them. And if not, is there any reason why we just can't send them information, Saret, when it comes out to us on new projects?
On what type of application?
Housing.
Well, I'm assuming they mean some housing that might fall under the criteria of be affordable housing.
Well, do they realize that we don't originate anything? It's applications are made to us.
I'm assuming they do that.
I would assume they should work with the town board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
it's not just the town board. I'll give you an example. And maybe it's at the discretion of my office. Sometime in the last several years, the Energy and Environment Committee was not on a regular basis for receiving applications from the planning board, and they made a request to be a regular recipient. So perhaps that is, what the housing board would want. And, that would be appropriate for certain applications, not for all. Certainly, it's not going to be an appropriate thing for something like a CVS application,
No.
but for the
Or
appropriate-
wireless.
Or wireless.
Just in the case of the Energy Environment Committee, I am the liaison to the Energy Environment Committee. So any plans that are forwarded to them, I'm able to liaise with them and explain it through. So we would probably, if we are going to consider this for now or in the future, then I think that we would need to have a liaison who would be able to, because you might get a report, but you might not really understand it. Sometimes it's easier to attend those meetings, those committee meetings, and just sort of disseminate that information as I do. So just throwing that out there. And I believe it's effective, and so does the Energy Environment Committee. So.
I guess then we'll just keep them in the loop with, at your discretion, Saret, send it to them. Does that sound fair enough to the board?
Yeah.
Yeah. They should
Okay.
be,
All right,
they should get our minutes and our agenda, and that will
Okay.
educate them.
all right.
And then could we request their mission statement? It's probably online, but I just like to know exactly what it is that they. I've always known that they existed, and forgive me for being a bad resident and not knowing really what they do. But I would be interested. And then
I'm in the same boat as you, Chris. I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest, what the mission statement is. Okay. All right, I'll give them a call back.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's it. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Our next meeting is December 9th. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you again. See you in December.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Everyone.
All right.
Jack, you got